we're going to talk about losing your sense of smell. If I can get these pictures to download. Okay, we know that in our brain, we have something called an olfactory bulb that is at the top of our nose that connects to our brain. So we know that neurosurgeons can actually do surgery through the nose to reach your pituitary gland, which sits up there, which is your hormone gland. And we know that even in ancient civilizations, they used to be able to get to the brain by going up the nose. So we know that we have this olfactory plate that kind of sits in the middle of our head, that's at the top of our nose, that has receptors. And those receptors pick up a quantum vibration from a molecule. So we no longer think that it is like a lock and key situation. It's more of a vibration, a quantum vibration that connects with the receptor. So the specifics of the molecule, the subatomic particles, the protons, neutrons, and electrons that make up that molecule that is your odorant, the thing that you're smelling, is what triggers that. And we know that the olfactory bulb connects directly to something called the hippocampus. And we know that the hippocampus is the only place that we have stem cells. So doctors used to think that we couldn't make new neurons in the brain. We now know that we can. This is why it is possible to reverse neurodegenerative disease if you do enough work, if you work hard enough. Nobody can reverse it for you. Not your mom, not your dad, not your son, not your daughter, not your grandchildren. You have to do the work. But we know that that can happen if you do enough things. Ketosis, make lactic acid, do high intensity interval exercise. So your olfactory bulb, which again sits like in the middle of your head right here at the top of your nose, gets triggered by a quantum vibration of the molecule to connect to your hippocampus, which is where you form your memories. It's where you form your thoughts. You have time and place cells in your hippocampus that rebuild your environment, just like what Elon is doing with the Tesla cars, okay? So he's, in essence, with those cars, he's using visual cameras, 12 cameras around the car, to recreate what the human brain's hippocampus does. And we'll get into that another day. So when you have a virus, we're not going to name the virus, but there are very few viruses that attack the olfactory bulb. A few herpes viruses do it. But mostly it is COVID. So if you've lost, and most of your sense of taste is really your sense of smell. Most of it is coming in through here. So if you've lost your taste and you've lost your sense of smell, that means that the virus has gotten in and attacked that olfactory bulb. Now I'm going to show you guys a picture on my computer that I pulled up so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so this would be the virus going up into your nose. This is your olfactory bulb. It would attack this area that's connecting to your hippocampus on your brain. And your hippocampus is the area where you're going to make new stem cells to reverse age your brain or get rid of dementia. So if you have attacked this olfactory bulb, and here's a better picture, COVID, air with odorant molecules, this triggering of the odorant molecule in these little guys is a quantum vibration. It is not a chemical reaction. It's happening at the level of quantum tunneling that we talked about live this morning. The signals are then basically collected, right? And then go to trigger different areas of the brain, okay? So if you have a virus that has caused inflammation in through there, what are the ways that you can turn down the virus? Or what are the ways that you can turn down the inflammation? So this is why I've been talking so long. We know that you have inflammation. There's a molecule called beta-hydroxybutyrate that turns off inflammation. Beta-hydroxybutyrate in general turns off inflammation. It turns off inflammation from the macrophage 1 and 2 balance in your lungs. It turns off inflammation from the inflammasome in places like your brain. Your inflammasome is something that you can think of as like a Ferris wheel of inflammation being kicked up. So what are things that you can do? And I posted on Genetic Protocol things that you can do to turn off inflammation. Number one, the most powerful thing is to make yourself make beta hydroxybutyrate. Now, can you take it if you're desperate and you haven't been getting ready for this thing for 2 years like I've been talking about? Can you take beta hydroxybutyrate? Yes. But the better way is to make it, okay? You make it by limiting carbohydrates, and for most people, you have to go below 20 grams of carbohydrates to turn on beta hydroxybutyrate production. Then, from the field of neuroscience, how do we know that you can make new neurons? Because the only place that you have stem cells, now we're just talking about the virus, but this would apply to anywhere in your body, this would apply to anyone who has trouble with their olfactory bulb. We know that you have stem cells in your olfactory bulb, and we know that you have stem cells in your hippocampus. That's how we know you can make new neurons, even though most doctors will still tell you that you can't. So you can take things if you're symptomatic to lower inflammation. So some of the things that turn off inflammation would be things like your own endocannabinoids, your taking cannabinoids. That's why we have a whole line of CBD. Palmitoyl ethanolamide, which is a fatty acid. So you can take PEA, mine's called Genetic Protocols, it's called PEA Comfort Complex, or you can actually, we make it in the form of a cream, right? We make it in the form of a cream for a more direct application. So anytime you apply something in the body that is in a cream, if you put it over the area where you want it to work, you're going to get a higher concentration in that area. So there's actually a cream of palmitoyl ethanolamide, right? DHA, so DHA, seafood is seafood. Seafood is seafood because it lowers inflammation and allows you to see all of the light. That's quantum tunneling also in your eye. Resveratrol, so the PEA Comfort Complex that we have has resveratrol in it. Quercetin, and then there was a supplement called luteolin, which I didn't realize it was out of stock, Joey, until you asked me, so I'll have to call and see when it's going to be back. But the pills will work just as well for now. No, don't put anything up your nose. Rule number 1 of being a parent, don't put anything up your nose. Right here, luteolin. So the trial that I published at Genetic Protocol was about luteolin. And then there's a cough medicine, which I put on Genetic Protocol, if you can find that specific cough medicine. However, I think it was banned in the United States at the beginning of this thing that we're going through. So I don't think you can find it in the United States. Smell therapy, smelling different things is great for the memory that's associated with, for triggering a memory. But smell therapy, just smelling pikaki, is not going to lower the inflammation in your olfactory bulb. Smelling lavender is not going to lower the inflammation in your olfactory bulb. Smelling sage is not going to lower the inflammation. Now, how do you get your body to make, yes, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm doing this. Right? That's why I'm doing this. Now, another issue can be histamine release. So if you're sick and your barrier epithelium exists in your sinuses, your ears, your lungs, your esophagus, you're releasing cells like mast cells that release histamine into that area. Histamine causes local vasodilation. Histamine is a good thing in the right amount. The reason people have problems with histamine intolerance is that they don't get enough sunshine to shine on that aromatic amine to get it to do its job of regulation of your immune system. So you're supposed to have histamine. Histamine's not a bad thing. It's just that so many people live with too many carbohydrates and not enough sun that they have an overabundance of histamine. histamine, when you release it in your nose, makes that area even more swollen. So when you think inflammation, just a simple way to think of inflammation, think about swelling. If I'm inflamed, if I had too much sugar last night or too much alcohol last night, my rings are not going to fit. They wouldn't come off this easily. That's inflammation. So if that's going on in here and you think you have a histamine problem, you have to address that too. How do you release stem cells in your brain? Who knows how you get stem cells out of your brain? How do you get stem cells to be released in general? Anybody know? Who knows how you make stem cells or how you get stem cells to release? Because our body still has stem cells. We have stem cells in our fat. We have stem cells in our bone marrow. We know we still have stem cells in our thyroid. We think that we're starting to see signs of stem cells around the periphery of our ovary. So for those of you who are here for fertility information, watch that topic carefully, because there are some scientists now, and obviously scientists debate over these things for 20 or 30 years, but there are scientists who are starting to show that there's peripheral oogono stem cells, meaning you still have stem cells in your ovary that could become young ovary cells, which is completely the opposite of what any of us were taught. So high intensity interval exercise. So when I see you guys asking questions, smelling different smells is great, but it's not going to bring your smell back. You have to do the work. You have to do the work. You have to do the exercise to make the stem cells come out of hiding. You have to do things to lower inflammation. You have to enter ketosis or make beta-hydroxybutyrate. You have to practice autophagy. You have to run your dishwasher. You have to clean your cells. The things that will help, it's all about energy over inflammation. So if you have too much inflammation, and that would be if you have not enough ATP and too much inflammation, you can take things to bring down the inflammation, right? So if the inflammation in your nose needs to be brought down, fish oil, seafood, resveratrol, PEA comfort complex, PEA cream over your nose, luteolin, bring the inflammation down, right? But what does it the best? Ketosis, fasting, beta-hydroxybutyrate. And when you bring it down, what happens on the other side of the equation? Your ATP goes up, 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 up. So not only does your olfaction get better, but your energy level gets better, your sleep gets better, you shrink the fat cells that are making inflammatory signaling so that you're so inflamed, right? Okay, so I hope that summarizes everything that I've been talking about with olfaction. Now, the reason that I keep harping on the sperm and the egg, now we're going to get into fertility. The egg has what's called a cumulus oorphus. The egg has a cloud of chemicals around it. The egg has a cloud of chemicals around it. One of those chemicals that the egg releases is called progesterone. And progesterone has a very similar part of the molecule to lily of the valley. But there's other in the world of science, we call that chemoattractants, or chemicals that attract the sperm. Okay, so this doesn't take effect until the sperm is within about 2 centimeters of the egg. Once the sperm is within about 2 centimeters of the egg, it starts to detect these chemicals around the egg, and it beelines. So at that point, out of the millions of sperm that have been released into the vagina and travel up into the tube, there's only about 100 that get this close to the egg. Okay, there's only about 100. And then in that egg's cumulus, right? Cumulus is a cloud. In her cloud of chemicals, she is secreting chemoattractants. And the biggest one that we are aware of is bourgeonal, which is the science name for lily of the valley. It's a chemoattractant. And how do we know that it attracts the sperm? Because the sperm has an olfactory, the same genes that code for the proteins in your nose. I'm pointing at the computer. The same genes that code for the proteins in your olfactory bulb exist in the sperm. And when the sperm becomes what we call capacitated or activated or turned on, or it begins its journey to go get the egg, that gene turns on, and this olfactory protein, we've been talking a lot about amino acid sequences and protein migrate to the tip of the sperm so that it can, when it's one of the 100 finalists, right? Your Price is Right, or think of a show that has finalists, American Idol. When it's one of the final 10 finalists, and actually there's probably 20, so say there's 20 to 25 finalists on American Idol, the egg releases these chemoattractants, and it's more than one. Instead of like the sperm's tail is kind of all over the place. Once it gets a good whiff of that bourgeonelle or lily of the valley molecule, it goes bang, straight into the egg. And only one lucky sperm gets to merge with the egg to allow it to fertilize. That's the zinc spark part. Now, we also know from more recent studies, and someone said, why are they saying that the lily of the valley theory has been disproven? Okay, there's a lot of chemoattractants here. And if you look up some of those posts that I did yesterday, there's lists of different molecules that are chemoattractants. Some of them are molecules that are used in perfume, but they all affect this olfaction. So what I'm telling you is that your sperm literally has a sense of smell. And that is a quantum vibration. That is not a chemical. So in the people who refuted the lily of the valley theory, they said it would take more than 1,000 molecules of bourgeonelle or lily of the valley to attract the sperm. But if it's a quantum vibration, it only takes one. The other chemoattractants or the other chemical attractants around the egg are things that we're finding are looking for histocompatibility, meaning immune cell compatibility. So we know that we can take an egg in a dish and we can put your husband's sperm in this pipette, and we can put a random person's sperm in this pipette. And when they make their journey and they get close enough, your egg might not choose your husband. So you spent your whole life looking for the perfect guy, best dressed, smartest, provider, protector, whatever things you look for, makes you happy, makes you laugh, whatever things you look for in a mate, whether it's conscious or subconscious. You spend your whole life looking for those things. And now scientists can take your egg outside, put it in a dish, put the sperm of your husband in this pipette and the sperm of a stranger over here. And if your chemoattractants, your chemicals, some of which we know, some of which we don't yet know, say that this dude over here has better genetics in terms of your histocompatibility, in terms of immune system compatibility, your egg is going to go, come on, baby, forget my partner. Come on, I want this one. And that's all happening at a chemoattractant or genetic level. Now, I just use lily of the valley as of the example because that's something that you can associate with sense of smell. And that's why I came in here to show you what's going on with the olfactory bulb with COVID. Now, I'm not talking conspiracy theory. Please don't go off the rails and think that I'm talking conspiracy theory or this was designed to destroy humanity. I'm not talking about any of that. I am just saying you have an olfactory gene and therefore protein in the sperm that is drawn to progesterone in the ovary, and that progesterone molecule has a piece of it that is similar to bourgeonelle. So when I show you guys these pictures of all the ribbons, the reason I'm showing you the ribbon molecules is to show you that they can fold in, and that would be lipophilic or hydrophobic, or they can fold out. If they're folded out, they like water. They're water loving. If they fold in, they're fat loving. So we now have artificial intelligence that can predict, that knows the whole human genome, knows the sequences that code for what protein, know if the amino acid is folded or the protein is folded with the lipophilic fat loving area is folded in, or if it's folding out. So they can predict all those curlicues and which way they fold to know what's going to happen. So we can empirically say, yes, there's a segment of the lily of the valley plant molecule that is amino acid wise identical to progesterone, some segment, not the whole molecule, but some segment. And that quantum vibration can bind with an olfactory gene that makes a protein on the sperm to say, I don't want my husband, I want this guy. And we know that there are other chemoattractants, probably some we know and some that we don't, that are also saying, you, dude, over there, you have a better immune system to match with my DNA, and we want to give this human embryo that's come into life the best chance of survival in a world where that human embryo is going to go out and face hepatitis, bacterial infections, a poor, weakened immune system, not enough probiotics, not enough good bacteria in my vagina, RSV, polio, common cold, which is what coronavirus used to be, right? So when given, aside from human decisions to mate with one guy because he's cute and not another guy because he's smart but he's not that cute, or whatever people base their decisions on, there's chemistry over here, and that's also pheromone based. There's not chemistry over here. If you were to just take your egg and put it in a petri dish and say, choose a sperm, it's going to choose the one based on chemoattractants that is the best fit for that baby to come out and be able to fight off bacteria, viruses, and the things that the immune system has to be able to allow you to fight off when given the decision outside of the body. It's just our heads that might change that. Okay? Make sense? So I think that was you, one in union, that asked the question. It doesn't matter, I'm going to put it a different way. It doesn't matter what the pros and cons or the argument for and against say from 2010, 2003 to 2013, because now we know we have the entire human genome sequenced. We have the molecular folding of the protein sequence. That was that post that I made to try to explain that. That's called AlphaFold. AlphaFold works on artificial intelligence. It's owned by Google. So if we have the whole genome sequenced and we have the whole protein folding sequence, we can see it. You can see how it works. So when you get down to that level, that's how they're making drugs. That's how they're making drugs and receptors. Right? If there are several eggs, would the one sperm go to the most chemo-attractive pairing? I don't think they've done that experiment. At least I haven't seen it. I'll have to look, Joey. But, I mean, you only can have sex with one person at a time. So it's rare that a woman would have sex at the time of fertilization with a male, two different males back to back, right? I mean, right? So in reality, if you're in a monogamous relationship and you got one shot, you can see my brain spinning on that question. So anyway, that's how it works. So the same olfactory bulb that's in here also has a gene and a protein in the sperm that makes the sperm swim when it gets within a couple of centimeters of the egg in a straight line. And the reason I've been harping on these two topics is because I want you to understand that if olfaction is going on here, there's a gene and a protein in the sperm that's using the same technique. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Have a great day. Bye.